Today we're diving deep into uncharted waters, the world of market creation. Think wide open spaces, not bloody competition.
hmm
We're taking inspiration from blue ocean strategy, and I've got an expert navigator with me to help us chart a course.
Ready to make some waves.
Absolutely.
hmm
Now, I was thinking about how crowded the business world feels these days. Everyone's vying for the same slice of the pie.
Yeah,
Is it even possible to find space to breathe, let alone thrive in such a competitive environment?
it's definitely a challenge, but it's not impossible. The key is to shift your focus from battling it out in existing markets to creating entirely new ones. Imagine instead of fighting over a shrinking pie, you could bake a whole new one where the competition becomes irrelevant. That's the power of what we call blue ocean thinking.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So we're not talking about beating the competition at their own game. We're talking about creating a whole new game altogether.
Precisely. Think of it this way. A red ocean represents all the industries that exist today. The market space is defined, the boundaries are set, and companies are locked in a fierce struggle for market share. It's a zero-sum game where one company's gain is another's loss.
So a red ocean is like that super packed concert where everyone's crammed in, jostling for space, trying to get a glimpse of the stage, and maybe even a sip of water.
Exactly. Now imagine a blue ocean. It's a wide-open market space, uncontested, where demand is created rather than fought over. Companies in blue oceans aren't worried about outdoing the competition because they're playing by a different set of rules. They're offering something so unique and compelling that the competition becomes irrelevant.
Okay, now that's a concert I want to be at. Plenty of space to dance, maybe even a comfy chair and a refreshing beverage.
Yeah.
But how do we actually find these blue oceans? It's not like they're marked on a map, right?
Right. While there's no magical map, there are definitely ways to navigate towards blue oceans. It starts by challenging the assumptions that define your industry. Instead of benchmarking competitors and trying to outperform them by offering a little more for a little less, what if you step back and ask, what are we taking for granted? What if we change the rules of the game?
So instead of trying to be the best at what everyone else is doing, we should be asking ourselves, what could we do differently? What new value could we create that would make the existing competition seem boring?
You're getting it. Now, one way to start thinking differently is to look across alternative industries. Think about the alternatives your customers choose instead of your industry's offerings.
Okay, so let's say I'm in the movie theater business. Instead of just focusing on how to get more people to come to the movies, I should be asking, what are people doing instead of going to the movies? Are they staying home and streaming movies, going out to dinner, or attending live events?
Exactly. By analyzing these alternatives, you can identify unmet needs and opportunities to create new value propositions that blend elements from different industries. Maybe you could incorporate aspects of the restaurant experience into your theater, offering gourmet food and drinks, or create a more interactive social experience that rivals the energy of a live concert.
That's really interesting. It's about looking beyond the traditional boundaries of your industry and seeing the bigger picture of how people are spending their time and money.
It's about understanding that competition isn't just coming from within your industry, it's coming from everywhere. Now, another path to consider is looking across strategic groups within your industry.
So instead of just looking at the industry as a whole,
Yeah.
we should be zooming in on the different segments or tiers of offerings within that industry, right?
Exactly. Each strategic group targets a specific customer segment with a distinct set of needs and price points. For example, in the automotive industry, you have luxury cars, economy cars, and family vehicles.
So instead of just trying to create a better luxury car or a more affordable economy car, we should be asking ourselves, what if we combine the best aspects of different strategic groups to create a hybrid offering that appeals to a wider audience?
Precisely. You could imagine a car that offers the fuel efficiency and affordability of an economy car with the luxury features and comfort of a high-end vehicle.
That would definitely turn heads in the marketplace. So it's about understanding the nuances within your industry and finding ways to bridge the gaps between existing offerings to create something truly unique.
Absolutely. Now, here's another path that often gets overlooked, looking across the chain of buyers.
Okay, this one sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
This path encourages you to think beyond the traditional definition of the customer and consider the entire chain of buyers involved in a purchase decision. For example, in the pharmaceutical industry, doctors are often the key influencers. But what about the patients themselves?
Or the insurance companies that ultimately foot the bill.
Exactly. Each stakeholder in the chain might have different priorities and definitions of value. A doctor might be most concerned with the drug's efficacy. A patient might prioritize ease of use or minimal side effects, and an insurance company might be focused on cost effectiveness.
So by understanding the needs and motivations of all the players involved in the purchase decision, we can potentially unlock new markets by creating offerings that appeal to a broader range of stakeholders.
Precisely. Instead of just focusing on the end user, think about the purchasers, the influencers, and even the users.
This is making me realize how much we tend to operate within our own little bubbles, focused on our immediate customers, without considering the bigger ecosystem of players involved in a transaction.
It's a common blind spot. But by expanding your perspective and looking across the chain of buyers, you can identify opportunities to create value propositions that disrupt the traditional power dynamics and create a win-win scenario for everyone involved.
Okay, I'm ready to explore another path. What's next?
Let's talk about looking across complementary product and service offerings. This is all about understanding the context in which your product or service is used and identifying opportunities to enhance the overall customer experience.
So instead of just thinking about the product or service itself, we should be asking ourselves what happens before, during, and after our customers use our product or service. What other needs do they have that we could potentially address?
Exactly. Think about the pain points your customers experience and whether you could offer complementary products or services to address them. For example, if you're in the business of selling movie tickets, you might consider offering babysitting services for parents who want to enjoy a date night or a ride-sharing partnership to make getting to and from the theater more convenient.
So it's about taking a holistic view of the customer journey and finding ways to add value at every touch point, even if it goes beyond your core product or service.
Precisely. By providing these complementary offerings, you can make your products or services more attractive, differentiate yourself from competitors, and create a more seamless and enjoyable experience for your customers.
This is reminding me of how airlines have started offering everything from travel insurance to car rentals to hotel bookings, creating a one-stop shop for all your travel needs.
That's a great example. They've expanded their offerings beyond just getting you from point A to point B, creating a more comprehensive and valuable travel experience for their customers.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired. Let's keep going. What's another path we can explore to unlock these blue oceans?
Let's talk about challenging the conventional wisdom about whether an industry focuses primarily on function or emotion. We call this path looking across functional or emotional appeal to buyers.
Okay, I'm curious. How does this work in practice?
For example, the automotive industry has traditionally focused on functional aspects like safety, fuel efficiency, and performance. But what if we injected more emotion into the experience? Could we create a vehicle that not only gets you from point A to point B, but also makes you feel a certain way?
So instead of just selling a car, you're selling a feeling and experience, a lifestyle.
Exactly. You're tapping into the emotional drivers that influence purchasing decisions, creating a connection that goes beyond just the functional attributes of the product.
I can see how powerful that can be.
Yeah,
And on the flip side, in industries that are typically very emotionally driven, could we find ways to strip away some of the extras and offer a more functional, streamlined, and potentially more affordable alternative?
absolutely. Think about the fashion industry, for example. While high-end designers often focus on creating emotionally charged, luxurious experiences, there's also a growing market for minimalist functional clothing that prioritizes quality and durability over fleeting trends.
So it's about finding the right balance between function and emotion, understanding what your target customers value most, and creating offerings that resonate with their needs and desires.
Exactly. It's about challenging the assumptions that define your industry and finding new ways to connect with your customers on a deeper level.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground already, but I'm eager to explore our final path to blue ocean creation. What have we got?
The final path is all about taking a long-term perspective and understanding how trends evolve over time. We call this looking across time.
So it's about being forward-thinking, understanding where the world is headed, and positioning yourself to be ahead of the curve.
Precisely. By analyzing trends, anticipating shifts, and understanding how those shifts might impact your industry, you can identify emerging needs before they become mainstream and create blue oceans by being the first to offer solutions.
It's like having a crystal ball, but instead of relying on magic, you're relying on careful observation analysis and a deep understanding of how the world is changing.
Exactly. Think about the rise of electric vehicles. Companies that anticipated this shift early on and invested in developing electric car technologies were able to create a blue ocean while traditional automakers were still playing catch up. They weren't just reacting to the market, they were shaping it.
That's incredibly powerful. So it's not just about being innovative, it's about being anticipatory, about seeing the future before it arrives and creating offerings that meet the needs of tomorrow's customers.
You've got it. Now we've explored these 6 paths to creating blue oceans, but it's important to remember that these are just starting points. They're meant to spark your imagination, to challenge your assumptions, and to help you see the world with fresh eyes.
They're like lenses that we can use to focus our attention and to identify opportunities that we might otherwise miss. But even with the best lenses, it's still up to us to do the looking, to do the exploring, and to do the creating.
Exactly. Blue ocean strategy is not a formula or a recipe. It's a mindset, a way of thinking, a commitment to continuous innovation and value creation.
It's about embracing the unknown, challenging the status quo, and never settling for the ordinary.
Well said. And that's what makes it so exciting.
Okay, I'm feeling energized and ready to start putting these ideas into practice. But before we get too carried away, I'm wondering if there are any specific tools or frameworks that can help us actually make these blue ocean dreams a reality. Because it's one thing to talk about thinking outside the box, but how do we actually do that in a structured and strategic way?
That's where the 4 actions framework comes in. It's a simple but powerful tool that can help you break free from the constraints of conventional thinking and identify opportunities for value innovation.
Okay, I'm all ears. Break it down for me.
The framework consists of 4 key actions: eliminate, reduce, raise, and create. By applying these actions to the factors that define your industry, you can systematically challenge the status quo and unlock new possibilities.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's dive into each of these actions. First up, eliminate. What exactly are we eliminating and why is it important?
We're eliminating factors that the industry takes for granted, but that no longer add value to customers or perhaps never did. These could be feature services or even entire business processes that have become outdated, unnecessary, or simply too costly to maintain.
So it's like decluttering our business model, getting rid of the things that are just taking up space and not really contributing to the overall customer experience.
Exactly. It's about simplifying, streamlining, and focusing on what truly matters.
This is making me think of all the times I've been frustrated by a product or service that was just too complicated, too cumbersome, or too loaded with features that I didn't even need or want.
It happens all the time. And that's why the eliminate action is so important. It forces you to question the assumptions that underpin your industry and to identify opportunities to create a more streamlined and valuable offering for your customers.
I love it. So by eliminating the unnecessary, we're creating space for the extraordinary.
Exactly. Now let's move on to the next action: reduce. This is where we start to fine-tune our offerings and find that sweet spot between value and efficiency.
Okay, so what are we looking to reduce and how do we know how much is too much?
We're looking to reduce factors that have been over-designed or over-served in the race to match or beat the competition. These could be features, benefits, or services that are simply not valued by customers or that add unnecessary complexity and cost to your business.
So it's about finding that balance between delivering enough value to meet customer needs without going overboard and driving up costs unnecessarily.
You've got it. It's about being strategic with your resources and ensuring that every investment you make is aligned with what your customers truly value.
This is making me realize how often we get caught up in trying to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, adding features or benefits just because our competitors are doing it without really considering whether those things are actually adding value to our customers.
It's a common trap. But by taking a step back and applying the reduce action, you can identify opportunities to simplify your offerings, reduce costs, and focus on what truly differentiates you in the marketplace.
Okay, I'm ready to take things up a notch. Let's talk about the third action raise.
Now we're getting to the heart of value innovation. This is where we start to identify factors that are currently underserved in the market and find ways to raise the bar exceeding customer expectations.
So we're not just meeting the status quo, we're challenging it, pushing the boundaries, and creating a wow factor that sets us apart from the competition.
Exactly. By raising these factors, you can create a leap in value for customers and make your offerings irresistible.
Okay, give me some examples. What are some factors we might want to raise to create a blue ocean?
It depends on your industry and your target customers, of course, but some common examples include raising the level of customer service, enhancing the quality of your products, offering more personalized experiences, or creating a stronger emotional connection with your brand.
So it's about going above and beyond, exceeding expectations, and giving customers something truly special that they can't find anywhere else. I love it. Now let's get to the grand finale of the 4 actions framework create. This sounds like the most exciting part.
This is where we can really get innovative. The create action challenges you to identify entirely new factors that the industry has not yet considered, creating new sources of value for buyers.
So we're not just improving on what already exists. We're inventing something entirely new, something that redefines the playing field and creates a market space where there was none before.
Exactly. This is where blue ocean thinking really comes to life. It's about seeing the world with fresh eyes, challenging assumptions, and creating possibilities that others haven't even imagined.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. This framework is incredibly powerful. It provides a systematic way to challenge assumptions, uncover hidden opportunities, and create innovative value propositions. But I have to ask, even with the best blue ocean strategy, isn't execution still key? How do we ensure that our great ideas actually come to life and make a real impact in the world?
That's where strong leadership comes in. It's about creating a culture of innovation, empowering your team, and navigating the inevitable challenges that come with disrupting the status quo.
This sounds like a whole other deep dive. I'm eager to learn more about how we can translate these brilliant blue ocean ideas into tangible results.
Let's chart that course in our next segment. Are you ready to explore the leadership dimension of blue ocean strategy?
Absolutely. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the deep dive. We just explored some incredibly powerful tools for creating blue oceans, but I have a feeling our journey isn't over yet. What else should we be considering as we set sail for these uncharted market spaces?
You're right, there's always more to explore. And one crucial aspect of blue ocean strategy that we haven't talked about yet is the importance of understanding non-customers.
Okay, now that's a twist.
Yeah.
Why would we spend time worrying about the people who aren't buying from us? Shouldn't we be focusing on our loyal customers, the ones who already love what we do?
It's a common misconception to think that focusing solely on existing customers is the key to growth. But Blue Ocean Strategy challenges us to look beyond the familiar and consider those who aren't currently buying from us or even engaging with our industry at all. These non-customers hold valuable insights that can unlock entirely new markets.
So instead of just trying to sell more of the same to the same people, we should be asking ourselves, why aren't some people buying from us? What are their needs and pain points? What are their alternatives?
Precisely. And by understanding their motivations, we can identify opportunities to create offerings that appeal to a much broader audience. Think of it like expanding the pie rather than just fighting for a bigger slice of the existing one.
I'm starting to see the light, but this begs the question, how do we actually understand these non-customers? It's not like we can just invite them to a focus group and ask them why they don't like our product.
You're right, it requires a more nuanced approach. Instead of relying on traditional market research methods that are often focused on existing customers, we need to get creative and find ways to understand the needs and motivations of those who are outside our current market.
So we need to become market anthropologists, venturing into the uncharted territories of consumer behavior to understand the tribes that haven't yet discovered our brand.
Exactly. It's about observing, listening, empathizing, and really trying to see the world from their perspective.
This is making me realize how much we tend to operate within our own little bubbles, making assumptions about what people want and need without really understanding their lived experiences.
It's a common trap, and that's why it's so important to challenge our assumptions and actively seek out perspectives that differ from our own. Now, when it comes to understanding non-customers, it's helpful to think of them in three tiers.
Okay, I'm ready to dive into these tiers. What do we got?
The first tier consists of those who are on the edge of your market, what we call soon-to-be non-customers. These are people who might be buying from a competitor, but they're not fully satisfied and could be easily swayed to switch if you offer them something better.
They're like those folks who are window shopping, intrigued by what they see, but not quite ready to commit.
Exactly. They're looking for a reason to jump ship, but they haven't found it yet. Your job is to understand why they're hesitant, what's holding them back, and what you can offer that would tip the scales in your favor.
So instead of trying to convince them that your product is better than the competition, you need to understand what they're really looking for and tailor your offering to meet their specific needs.
Precisely. It's about understanding their pain points, their motivations, and their aspirations.
This is making me think about the plant-based meat industry. They've been incredibly successful at attracting soon-to-be non-customers meat eaters who are curious about plant-based alternatives but haven't fully made the switch.
That's a great example. They've focused on creating products that taste and feel like meat, addressing the key concerns of many meat eaters who are hesitant to give up the flavors and textures they were used to.
Okay, so we've got our soon-to-be non-customers on the edge of the market, ready to be wooed. What about the next tier?
The second tier consists of those who have consciously chosen against your industry's offerings. We call these refusing non-customers. These are the people who have decided that your product or service is not for them, and they have a reason for that decision.
So these are the folks who have tried our product or service, or at least considered it, but decided it wasn't a good fit for them. Maybe they thought it was too expensive, too complicated, or simply not aligned with their values or lifestyle.
Exactly. And while it might be tempting to dismiss these refusing non-customers as lost causes, they actually hold valuable insights that can help you identify blind spots in your current offerings and uncover opportunities to create new value propositions.
So instead of just saying, oh, well, they're not our target market, we should be asking ourselves, what are their reasons for refusing? What can we learn from their feedback? How can we adapt our offerings to address their concerns?
Precisely. Remember, these refusing non-customers have made a conscious choice to go elsewhere, which means they've found something that better meets their needs. By understanding what that something is, you can potentially unlock new markets and create offerings that appeal to a wider audience.
This is making me think about the rise of subscription boxes. They've been incredibly successful at attracting refusing non-customers who were tired of the traditional retail experience with its overwhelming choices, pressure sales tactics, and impersonal service.
That's a great example. Subscription boxes offer a curated, personalized experience that takes the guesswork out of shopping and provides a sense of discovery and delight. They've addressed the pain points of many consumers who are refusing to participate in the traditional retail market.
Okay, so we've explored the soon-to-be non-customers and the refusing non-customers. What about the final tier? This is where things get really interesting, right?
This is where we venture into the truly uncharted territory of the unexplored non-customers. These are people who are in markets distant from yours, who haven't even considered your industry's products or services. They're off doing their own thing, completely unaware of what you have to offer.
So these are the folks who are living their lives blissfully ignorant of the amazing products and services that we're creating.
In a way, yes. But the key here is not to try to force-feed them your existing offerings. Instead, it's about understanding their needs, their values, their aspirations, and identifying opportunities to create something entirely new that resonates with their worldview.
So it's not about trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. It's about creating a whole new shape that perfectly matches the contours of their unmet needs.
Exactly. It's about seeing the world with fresh eyes, challenging the assumptions that define your industry, and creating possibilities that others haven't even imagined.
This is making me think about the rise of online education platforms. They've been incredibly successful at attracting unexplored non-customers who were previously excluded from traditional educational institutions due to geographic limitations, financial constraints, or simply a lack of interest in the traditional classroom setting.
That's a perfect example. Online education platforms have created a whole new market by offering accessible, affordable, and flexible learning opportunities that appeal to a global audience. They've democratized education and unlocked the potential of millions of people who were previously underserved.
Wow, that's truly inspiring. It makes me realize how much untapped potential there is in the world, how many unmet needs are waiting to be addressed, and how much value we can create by embracing blue ocean thinking and venturing beyond the familiar.
Absolutely, and that's the beauty of Blue Ocean strategy. It's not just about creating new markets, it's about creating new possibilities for ourselves, for our customers, and for the world.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today exploring the power of blue ocean thinking, the importance of understanding non-customers, and the potential for creating entirely new markets. But before we set sail for our own blue ocean adventures, I'm wondering if there are any common pitfalls or mistakes that we should be aware of. Because it's one thing to have a great idea, but it's another thing altogether to bring that idea to life in a sustainable and impactful way.
You're right, there are definitely some traps to be aware of, and one of the biggest is thinking that Blue Ocean strategy is simply about being customer-led.
Okay, that sounds counterintuitive. If we're not listening to our customers, who are we listening to?
While understanding customer needs is important, focusing solely on existing customers can lead to incremental improvements rather than the creation of new markets. Remember, your existing customers are already familiar with your industry's offerings, which means they're likely to have preconceived notions about what's possible and desirable.
So, by listening too closely to our existing customers, we might be limiting our own creativity and missing out on opportunities to create something truly groundbreaking.
Exactly. It's like asking a fish what it wants and it says more water. They can't imagine anything beyond their current environment. To create blue oceans, you need to think beyond the existing paradigm and consider the needs of those who are outside your current market.
So it's about finding that balance between listening to your customers and challenging their expectations, between meeting their current needs and anticipating their future needs.
Exactly. Now, another common trap is getting caught up in the technology for technology's sake. It's easy to get swept away by the hype of the latest gadget or innovation, but if it doesn't solve a real problem for customers, it's just a shiny object that won't create a sustainable blue ocean.
It's like having a super fast sports car.
Yeah.
It's impressive, but if you don't have a destination in mind, you're not really going anywhere. Technology is a tool, not a solution in itself.
Precisely. The key is to use technology to create value for buyers, to solve their pain points, to make their lives better, easier, or more enjoyable in some way.
This is making me think of all the times I've been excited about a new app or gadget, only to realize a few weeks later that it wasn't really adding any value to my life. It was just a novelty that quickly lost its shine.
It happens all the time, and it's a reminder that we should be focusing on the problem, not the solution. Start by understanding the needs of your target customers, and then use technology to create solutions that meet those needs in innovative and delightful ways.
Okay, so we've got to be careful not to get too caught up in the hype of the latest tech trends. What other traps should we be watching out for?
Another common mistake is thinking that blue ocean strategy is a one-time event. It's not about finding one perfect blue ocean and then just sitting back and enjoying the ride. The market is constantly evolving, customer needs are changing, and competitors are always trying to catch up.
So it's not a destination, just a journey.
Exactly. To maintain a blue ocean, you need to be constantly monitoring the landscape, anticipating shifts, and adapting your strategy accordingly.
It's like tending a garden. You can't just plant the seeds and walk away. You need to water them, weed them, and make sure they have the right conditions to thrive.
That's a great analogy. And just like a garden, a blue ocean can become overgrown and crowded over time. It's important to be proactive about pruning back the excess, introducing new varieties, and keeping the ecosystem healthy and vibrant.
So Blue Ocean strategy is not a quick fix. It's a long-term commitment to innovation, adaptation, and continuous improvement.
Absolutely. It's a mindset, a way of thinking, a way of life.
Yeah. Well, I'm feeling both inspired and a little intimidated. It sounds like Blue Ocean strategy is not for the faint of heart. It requires a different way of thinking, a willingness to challenge assumptions, and a commitment to continuous learning and adaptation.
That's right. It's challenging, but ultimately incredibly rewarding.
Okay, so we've talked about how to create blue oceans, how to avoid common traps, and the importance of continuous innovation. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious if there are any real-world examples of companies that have successfully implemented blue ocean strategies and achieved remarkable results. Because it's one thing to talk about the theory, but it's always inspiring to see how these ideas play out in the real world.
Absolutely. There are countless examples of companies that have made waves by embracing blue ocean thinking. Let's start with a classic example from the automotive industry. Back in the early 1900s, the automobile market was a luxury niche. Cars were expensive, handcrafted, and primarily for the wealthy.
So the existing market, or red ocean, was small, exclusive, and not exactly ripe for explosive growth.
Precisely. Then along came Henry Ford with his radical idea to create a car for the masses. He focused on affordability, reliability, and ease of production, introducing assembly line manufacturing to achieve economies of scale.
So we challenged the industry's assumptions about what a car should be and who it should be for. It wasn't about competing with existing luxury car makers. It was about creating a whole new market.
Exactly. The Model T was a resounding success, transforming the automobile industry and making car ownership accessible to everyday people. It's a classic example of blue ocean strategy in action.
Okay, that's a great historical example. But I'm also curious about more recent examples. Are there any companies that have created blue oceans in the digital age?
Definitely. Think about Nintendo and the Wii. Back in the mid-2000s, the video game industry was dominated by Sony's PlayStation and Microsoft's Xbox. These consoles were focused on hardcore gamers with powerful hardware and complex games that required a significant time investment to master.
So another crowded red ocean with fierce competition for a specific segment of the market.
Precisely. Then Nintendo came along with the Wii, a console that appealed to a much broader audience, including families and casual gamers. They focused on simplicity, intuitive motion controls, and fun, family-friendly games.
It wasn't about outpowering the competition. It was about creating a different kind of gaming experience, one that was more accessible and engaging for a wider range of people.
Exactly. The Wii was a massive hit, attracting a whole new generation of gamers and expanding the market significantly.
Okay, those examples are really inspiring. They show that Blue Ocean strategy isn't just a theory, it's a powerful framework that can lead to real-world success. But I'm also wondering, is Blue Ocean thinking only applicable to businesses, or can these principles be applied to other areas of life as well?
That's a great question, and the answer is a resounding yes. The principles of Blue Ocean strategy are universally applicable. They can be used to create new opportunities, solve problems, and make a difference in any field, from education and healthcare to nonprofit work and personal development.
So whether we're talking about launching a new product, starting a business, or simply improving our own lives, Blue Ocean thinking can help us break free from the limitations of existing paradigms and create a world of possibilities.
Precisely. It's about being innovative, being creative, and always looking for ways to make things better.
This has been an incredibly insightful exploration of Blue Ocean strategy. We've covered so much ground already, from the 6 paths to creating blue oceans to the 4 actions framework, from the power of non-customers to the importance of continuous innovation. But I have a feeling our journey isn't over yet. What else can we explore in the realm of blue oceans?
There's still so much more to discover. In our next segment, we'll delve into the concept of tipping point leadership, exploring how to create the right organizational conditions for blue ocean strategies to thrive. We'll also discuss some strategies for sustaining your blue ocean and keeping it from turning red over time.
Sounds fascinating. I can't wait to dive back in. Welcome back, deep divers. We've been exploring this exciting world of blue oceans, those wide open market spaces ripe for innovation and growth. We've talked about how to identify opportunities, challenge assumptions, and create compelling value propositions. But now I'm curious, how do we actually make these blue ocean dreams a reality? It's one thing to have a brilliant idea, but it's another thing altogether to bring that idea to life within an organization.
You're right, execution is key. And that's where leadership comes in. It's not enough to just have a great strategy. You need to have the right people in place with the right mindset and the right tools to make it happen.
Okay, so we're not just talking about any kind of leadership here. We're talking about a specific type of leadership that's conducive to blue ocean creation, right?
Exactly. We call it tipping point leadership. It's a style of leadership that's focused on driving rapid transformative change within an organization, even in the face of limited resources and resistance to change.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this tipping point leadership. What makes it different from traditional leadership styles?
Traditional leadership often relies on top-down directives, hierarchical structures, and a focus on controlling and managing resources. Tipping point leadership, on the other hand, is about empowering people, creating a sense of urgency, and fostering a culture of collaboration and innovation.
So it's less about commanding and controlling and more about inspiring and empowering.
Precisely. Tipping point leaders understand that change is not something you impose on people, it's something you create with them. They recognize that their role is not to have all the answers, but to ask the right questions, to challenge the status quo, and to create the conditions for innovation to flourish.
This is making me think of those iconic leaders who've inspired entire movements, people like Martin Luther King Jr. or Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
They didn't achieve their goals through force or coercion. They did it by uniting people around a shared vision and empowering them to take action.
That's a great analogy. Tipping point leaders are like catalysts. They spark a chain reaction that transforms the organization from the inside out. Now, one of the key challenges of driving transformative change is overcoming organizational inertia. People tend to be comfortable with the status quo, even if it's not working.
It's like that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But what if it is broken just in a subtle, insidious way that's hard to see until it's too late?
Exactly. That's why tipping point leaders focus on making the need for change undeniable. Instead of relying on dry data and endless presentations, they create experiences that make people feel the pain points firsthand.
So it's about showing, not just telling, getting people out of their comfort zones and exposing them to the realities on the ground.
Precisely. For example, a tipping point leader might take their team on a field trip to visit customers who are struggling with their product or to observe competitors who are doing something innovative. By creating these visceral experiences, they can break through the cognitive dissonance that often prevents people from seeing the need for change.
That's a brilliant approach. It's like taking the blinders off and letting people see the world with fresh eyes.
Now, another key challenge of leading change is overcoming the resource hurdle. Even when people recognize the need for change, they may balk at the perceived cost of implementing a new strategy, especially if resources are already stretched thin.
This is where things can get tricky. Especially in today's economic climate, leaders are often expected to do more with less. How can we overcome this resource hurdle without sacrificing our vision or derailing our strategy?
Tipping point leaders don't just accept the status quo, they challenge it. Instead of simply fighting for a bigger budget, they focus on reallocating existing resources, shifting funds and manpower to the areas where they'll have the greatest impact.
So it's about being resourceful, prioritizing, and making sure that every dollar and every hour is spent wisely and strategically.
Exactly. It's about making tough choices, cutting back on non-essential activities, and focusing on the initiative that will drive the most significant change.
It sounds like it requires a combination of creativity and discipline, a willingness to think outside the box and to make hard decisions about where to invest your limited resources.
Absolutely. Now, even with the resources in place, another challenge can arise: the motivational hurdle. Even with the right resources in place, people may lack the motivation to implement a new strategy, especially if they don't feel personally invested in it or if they fear the uncertainty that change often brings.
This is where we need to tap into people's intrinsic motivation, right? Make them feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, that their contributions matter, and that they have a stake in the success of the new strategy.
Precisely. Tipping point leaders understand that people are more likely to embrace change when they feel like they've been part of the process, that their voices have been heard, and that the decisions being made are fair and just.
So it's about creating a sense of ownership and shared responsibility rather than just imposing change from the top down.
Exactly. Tipping point leaders involve people in the decision-making process. They seek out diverse perspectives, and they create a culture of transparency and open communication.
This is making me think about the importance of building trust and psychological safety within an organization. If people feel safe to speak up, to share their ideas, and to challenge the status quo, they're more likely to be engaged and committed to the change process.
You're absolutely right. Trust is essential for any successful change initiative. Now, even with a highly motivated team, there's one final hurdle that we often need to navigate: the political hurdle.
Okay, this is where things can get a little messy, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about navigating the complexities of organizational dynamics, understanding who the key players are, what their motivations are, and how to build coalitions of support for the new strategy.
Exactly. Tipping point leaders don't shy away from these political realities. They recognize that change often involves disrupting the status quo, which can threaten the power and influence of certain individuals or groups within the organization.
So it's not enough to have a great idea. You also need to have the political savvy to navigate the organizational landscape and to build the support necessary to make that idea a reality.
Precisely. Tipping point leaders are skilled at building alliances, communicating effectively, and addressing concerns head on. They're not afraid to have difficult conversations, to challenge entrenched interests, and to stand up for what they believe in.
This whole concept of tipping point leadership is fascinating. It highlights the importance of not only having a great strategy, but also having the leadership skills to bring that strategy to life. It's about creating a culture of innovation, empowering your team, and navigating the inevitable challenges that come with disrupting the status quo.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that leadership is not just about the person at the top. Tipping point leadership can emerge from anywhere within an organization. It's about having the courage to challenge the status quo, the vision to see a better future, and the determination to make that vision a reality.
So it's about empowering people at all levels to be change agents, to think creatively, and to contribute their unique talents to the pursuit of blue oceans.
Exactly. Now, even with the best leadership and the most innovative strategies, there's still the question of sustainability. How do we ensure that our blue oceans don't turn red over time as competitors catch on and try to imitate our success?
That's the million-dollar question. We've talked about the importance of continuous innovation, of adapting to changing market conditions, but are there any other strategies that can help us sustain our blue ocean advantage?
One key strategy is to build strong barriers to entry. This could involve patenting your technology, building a strong brand reputation, developing exclusive partnerships, or creating a unique business model that's difficult to replicate.
So it's about creating a competitive moat around your blue ocean, making it difficult for others to swim in and steal your treasure.
Exactly. Another important strategy is to foster a culture of learning and adaptation within your organization. Encourage your team to be constantly monitoring the market, looking for signs of convergence, and being proactive about refreshing your value proposition.
So it's not enough to just create a blue ocean. You need to be constantly tending to it, nurturing it, making sure it stays vibrant and healthy.
Precisely. Blue ocean strategy is not a one-time event, it's an ongoing process.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the world of blue oceans. We've explored the changing business landscape, the 6 paths to creating blue oceans, the 4 actions framework, the power of non-customers, the importance of tipping point leadership, and the need for continuous innovation and renewal. I feel like we've charted a course for navigating uncharted waters and creating a future filled with exciting possibilities.
It has been a fantastic voyage. Remember, the principles we've discussed today are not just theories. They are tools you can use to make a real impact, whether you're leading a company, launching a new venture, or simply looking to make a difference in the world.
So to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you're feeling inspired to challenge the status quo, to think differently, and to set sail for your own blue ocean adventures.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep innovating, and keep creating.
Safe travels.